Welcome everyone, Farmer Cop here. This is going to be a guide on how to grow corn and sunflowers in Farming Simulator 22. So first off, I want to mention, if you watched my grains video, on how to grow grains in Farming Simulator 22, I'm going to give you a little bit of a shortcut here. So all the steps are the same except for just a few things that change, and I'm going to specifically and quickly mention the few things that change with corn and sunflowers at the very end of this video. If you do, or if you have watched the grains video, then skip ahead down below in the YouTube slider bar. You should be able to do so. Skip ahead to those extra couple minutes at the end, and that'll be all you need to know as far as growing corn and sunflowers. If you still have questions after you watch the grain video, then I would recommend watching this video in its entirety to give you some more details. But anyhow, we're going to jump into growing corn and sunflowers now. So the first step, just as with grains, is field preparation. So we want to make sure the field has been cultivated or plowed. Ensure that plowing is not required if you have periodic plowing turned on. If you go into the menu here and we go down to our game settings, down here at the very bottom, we have all of our different game settings down here. So periodic plowing required. If you have this turned on, you need to make sure that when you go into the map up here at the top, that this red plowing state on the field we're working on here is not on there. So you want to make sure, so this is the field we're working with, so it's not on there, so you don't have to worry about it. You have to make sure you deal with that if you have periodic plowing turned on. If you don't have it turned on, then you don't have to worry about it. In FS19, you used to have to plow after every 3 harvests. But in FS22, you don't have to do that anymore. You might have to plow initially to get the state down. For example, if I bought field 30 over here, I might have to plow it once to get this taken care of. What you're going to have happen if you don't plow and you have that turned on is you're going to see a 15% deficit. So your yield is going to be minus 15%. So you got to make sure you take care of that. Now, specific to corn in this guide, this does not apply to sunflowers, but specific to corn, corn requires plowing after every harvest. So if you are going to grow corn repeatedly, every time you grow corn, you're going to need to plow the field. So just be aware of that. Now, note that you do not need to do this step if plowing is not needed and you have a direct drill seeder, which we'll talk a little bit more about a direct drill seeder when we get into the seeding stage. So before we continue on, one thing to note with field prep here, as far as what you can use, if the plowing state is required, you can use something in the store here, such as a subsoiler or a plow, or I believe also a spader in here. It will take care of that plowing state. Otherwise, you can use any one of the different field prep options in here to kind of get your field ready to go. If you don't have a direct drill seeder, I do have a video out on how to, or what the different objects in here will do to a field. So you can take a look at that video if you want more information about those. But we'll go ahead and continue from there. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is liming the field. So if you go over here, actually, first let's talk about the setting in here. So down here at the very bottom, if we go back down to our game settings, and by the way, this does apply, all of our things we're going to talk about today do apply with seasons on or off. I'm going to talk about them without seasons off, or with seasons off, but then I'm going to talk about the changes as we go through that would apply if seasons are turned on. Now, if we have lime required turned to on, or you're playing with that on, you will need to lime every 3 harvests, no matter what the crop is. So you'll need to apply lime every 3 harvests. What that happens is if you do that, you will get a 15% yield bonus if you do it. If you don't get it, you're not going to get the 15% yield bonus. So essentially, you're going to get 15% less than what you would normally get. So how do you go about liming this field? Liming can be done by, if we go into the store here and we go down to our fertilizer spreaders, right down here, you need to find one that has lime indicated at the bottom here. So these will spread fertilizer and lime. This one does not do lime. This one does not do lime. These two here do lime at the bottom. So that is what you're going to need to apply lime with. You're going to pull these behind a tractor and be able to turn it on and activate it. You can buy lime in the store. Here in pallet form, if we go here, you have lime in here to put into your lime spreader. Or you can buy it from the lime point on the map. So make sure you do that. All right, so as we move on to the actual seeding and planting of the crop, we'll talk about how to do that. So I have a planter out here in front of us. So you need to purchase or lease a planter. Now, if we go into the store here, a couple things we need to talk about. You need a planter, not a seeder. If we go into here to seeders, they're not going to plant the crop types that we're looking for. If we go over to planters, these guys down here are going to do corn, sunflower, as well as they will also do soy, sugar beets, and cotton, but corn and sunflower are what we're focusing on today. So a few notes here. So first off here, as far as direct drills go, there's only, I believe, one in base game, which is this guy right here. And if it is a direct drill, up here at the top, it'll say, additionally, the seeder offers the possibility to seed directly. No previous cultivating or plowing is necessary. So that's just this guy here. Now, another thing to look at down on the bottom. So if we look at, go back to the beginning here. See if I can find a couple here. So this guy right here down at the bottom, again, we know it does the crops we want, but looking at it here, it only has the seed icon, so this will seed the crops. Now, if you wanted your planter to also throw down a layer of fertilizer, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit in the video, you'd want this icon as well, so you can load it with fertilizer. Now, after you purchase your seeder, you need to load it up with seed, which can be purchased in the store here in the form of a big bag pallet here, and then fertilizer is also in here, solid fertilizer. We have big bags, so we have solid fertilizer and seeds there. And under pallets, we also have, we scroll across here, we have solid fertilizer as well as seeds in here as well. So you've got all the stuff you're going to need there. You just need to purchase that, or you can purchase in the construction menu. There's a container that will hold seed, and you can purchase seed there and then use that as a fill point. So those are the ways to do it. Now, after you have your seeder done here, again, we don't have a direct drill here. We're not going to use a direct drill. We're using a regular one just to keep it as simple as possible. Again, we've made sure we have one that will actually do the correct plant types. We're using this Kenzie here, which is going to work perfect. So now we need to fill this thing up with seeds. So if I hop into the menu here, I open up the help menu, we're going to see if I get close enough to these guys here, it will allow me, if you look up in the upper left-hand corner, it'll say R to refill seeder. What that's going to do, if you look down in the bottom right-hand corner, as you see that 0% next to that corn icon, if I hit R, it's going to start filling that with seed for me. So again, it's going to fill that up until the big bag is gone, which is me 1,000, and I can keep hitting R for each of the big bags here that I have, and that's what we're going to do to actually fill up our seeder with seed. Now, we have plenty of seed there to get us going. Now, the other thing we need to talk about is down there at the bottom right-hand corner, it says corn. So how am I going to plant sunflowers or anything else? Well, in the upper left-hand corner, you can see the Y button will select the seed. So if I hit Y, it'll move it over to sunflowers, soy, sugar beets, and cotton. But again, we're going to do corn and sunflowers, and I'm going to do a stretch of each of those on here. So now that we're near our field, I'm going to hit X to start unfolding. Gonna turn this guy sideways, but just as a really cool unfold animation there. So as it gets unfolded, now that it is set and good to go and unfolded, I can hit V to lower it the rest of the way. So if I hit V, lower it down, and then I can hit B to actually physically turn it on. And as I drive, it'll continue going here. So there we go, we're actually seeding the field. Now, if you're playing with seasons on, important to note, so if I have seasonal growth to yes, we're gonna talk about that. It'll have this thing, this menu will pop it in here, your crop calendar. So if you have seasonal growth on, you need to plant, down here you see the planting season, you need to plant the crops in the planting season. So for corn, you need to plant in either April or May. For sunflowers, you'll need to plant in March and April. So just be aware of that. You need to get that going there. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and put a couple rows of corn and a couple rows of sunflower in here. And then we're going to talk about what we're going to do after that, after we get this stuff into the ground. So I'll bring you guys back in after I get that done. All right, now that our field is planted with, if we look in here, we have some corn and some sunflower in it. So got a few things in there. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is weeds. So you can skip this part of the video if you have weeds turned off. You can turn weeds off if we go down here to our game settings. If we go scroll down here a little bit, if we have, where are they at? Weeds, if we have those turned off, which I actually have them turned off for here just for the sake of making my crops look nice and not having to worry about it, but I'll still explain what to do with weeds. So again, if you have that turned off, you don't have to worry about this and you can skip this step. But if you do have weeds turned on, you need to take care of any weeds that pop up on your fields. Otherwise, you will get a 20% yield deficit. You'll lose 20% of your yield if you have weeds that pop up. Now, there's two ways to get rid of weeds. If we go into the store here, the first way is if you catch them early on. Now, I know there's some potential bugs and some glitches that people have told me about that this may or may not work. But in general, after everything gets squared away, weeders here, you can use a mechanical weeder that won't require anything for you other than just driving over the weeds if the weeds are in their earliest growth state, if you catch them early on. Now, if you do not catch them early on, the only other way to get rid of weeds is using a sprayer like one of these in here, which will spray herbicide, which is located down there and can be purchased under pallets. If we go in actually here, herbicide right there, so you can purchase it there. You also can use, I guess one more thing I want to note, is you also can use a fertilizer sprayer, self-propelled one, like one of these guys in here, and they will also do herbicide, so you can get rid of weeds that way. Now, how do you know if there's weeds on there? Well, if we go into our menu here, go on our map, if we go over to this screen right here, we already talked about plowing, we already talked about lime, so again, the lime state, if it's required, you're going to take care of it with that. Now the weeds, if we look at this right here, this field has weeds on it. So if you see this pink on the field, you're going to have to take care of the weeds. So if we had weeds show up on here, we'd know because the pink would show up. So just pay attention every day to make sure weeds get taken care of. So that's everything you need to know about weeds. The next thing we're going to transition to talking about is the fertilized state. So we have fertilizer here. You need to use solid fertilizer, liquid fertilizer, manure, or slurry to apply two fertilizer states to your field. Now, if you used a seeder, that also applied solid fertilizer, then you can you only have to do this once, so just be aware of that. Now, if we look at here and we highlight the fertilized, our field's actually already double fertilized. We don't have to worry about it, but we're still going to talk about it. So there's 2 fertilizer states. If we go over here to field 30 and 31, 31 has 1 state of fertilizer on it. Field 30 here, which is a darker blue, has 2 states of fertilizer on it. So this is the best right here. Now, each time you apply a state of fertilizer, you get a 23% bonus for each application. So, for example, if you apply only once, you're going to get a 23% bonus. If you have this double fertilizer state, like we have on our field here, we're going to get a 46% yield increase. So 46%, which is pretty significant. So just be aware of that. Now, another thing to note with fertilizer spreading, you can do a double application with a slurry or manure spreader. It'll use twice as much fertilizer, but it will do both fertilizer states at the same time. So if you didn't use a seeder that required it or anything like that, and you did that, then you'd be good to go. Now, when can you fertilize? So after you get planted here, as long as you didn't put down fertilizer with your seeder, you can go ahead and you can spray or spread on a fertilizer state right away. And then what you want to do is wait for the crop to start to grow. So if we go into here, we will see growth. It's just first growth state here. So after this goes up a growth state, so the green will get a little darker, then you can apply the second layer. Now, if you wait too long, you can still apply fertilizer as long as it's before it's ready to harvest, which would be this gold state, which you see over here in field 31, which we'll see on this here in a little bit. You can still apply it, but just be aware that when doing herbicide or fertilizer, if you're using a vehicle to spray it and it is in a later state of growth, and you have crop destruction turned on, you will destroy your crops if you drive over it. So crop destruction, just to note as well, down here in game settings, you can turn it on or off. If you have it on, you will destroy crops that are ready to harvest or are further along in their growth states if you drive over them with regular tires. Now you can, if we go in here and take a look at, I believe just what vehicle I look at before. I think this guy's got some in here. If we go to wheel setup here and we go over to, we have an option here for narrow tires. If you have a vehicle with narrow tires, the narrow tires should not destroy your crops. At a minimum, they won't do as much damage. So if you're going to actually have to drive over it to spray herbicide or fertilizer, make sure you have a vehicle with narrow tires on it to solve that problem. So again, that's everything you need to know as far as fertilizing go. The next thing we need to do is actually wait for these guys to be ready to harvest. So as far as how long that's going to take, if you're playing without seasons turned on and you're playing with 1 day months, which if we go in here, we can have where are we at here? We're down here, 1 day months, so no seasons, 1 day months. It is going to take the corn 6 months to grow, so 6 days in game essentially, and it will take the sunflowers 7 days or 7 months, so 7 in-game days, or essentially it's 7 months. Now, if I had this set to 3 days per month, well, sunflowers are now going to take 21 days to grow because there's 3 days in each month. If you're not playing with seasons turned on, it doesn't make any sense to have this really anything other than 1 day, in my personal opinion, but you can do however you want. Now, we do have seasons turned on. Also, another thing to note here, if you have this set to pause, your crops will not grow. So if you're not noticing any growth, make sure this is turned to either yes or no. So no for no seasonal growth, or yes for seasonal growth. Now, another thing to know, if we are playing with seasons on, we go back up to our crop calendar here. For corn and sunflowers, you have to harvest down here. You see this gold window here. You have to harvest when it's in the harvest season for it. So if we go to corn and sunflowers, and it actually likely won't even be ready to harvest until you get sometime in that. So for both corn and sunflowers, you're going to harvest between October and November here. So you're going to have to wait for October or November to harvest your crops. Now, if you wait too long and you get past it, your crops will likely wither if you have seasons turned on. If you don't have seasons turned on, your crops should not wither. So just be aware of that. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just fast forward some time. If you want to see each state of growth as these guys grow up, I have a growth test video, which I will have a card pop up. You can go ahead and check that out to see every growth state for every single crop type. So if you wanted to check that out, make sure you guys go do that. But otherwise, I'll see you guys here in just a second when it's time to harvest. All right, our corn and sunflower is ready to harvest. Again, make sure you don't harvest until you're in the harvest area if you're playing with seasons turned on. Sunflower and corn do not leave you any straw swath, so just another thing to note. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't even worry about it. But if you do know what that is, then these guys are not going to give it to you. I explained it in my grains video. But yeah, so what do you use to actually harvest these guys? Well, if we go into the store, you're going to need a harvester. Just any one of these regular harvesters. Make sure whatever harvester you choose down at the bottom, which all of these in this category should, will have corn down here and sunflower down here as an icon, so you know that'll harvest those. But after you select a harvester, which the one we're actually going to use in this case is the Lexion 8900, which does corn and sunflowers. The easiest way to find a header that'll work with them is down here at the bottom. You can hit combinations, then they'll show you these headers here. So again, make sure you choose one that will do corn and sunflower. This one here, if you remember from the grains video, we'll do these crop types here, but we'll not do corn or sunflower. These ones over here will do corn or sunflower, so these guys both are fine. This one's a little lighter weight, and it's a little cheaper. Actually, I'm not sure why you'd buy that if you have the Kloss version here, but you have both those options here. Now the final header over here is what's called a helianthus header. It does harvest only sunflower, it doesn't do corn. And you notice it is a little bit more expensive than that one. It's actually cheaper than that one. And same working width. Actually, it's a little wider, to be fair to it. It's a little wider, but why would you use it other than the fact that it's wider? Because you can use this with other harvesters as well that may not potentially have that wide of a header, or might have wider headers available. So why use this header over this one? Well, it's quite simple. This one will run at 6 miles an hour. It'll harvest at 6 miles an hour. This one will harvest at 9. So if you're going to do sunflowers or focus on sunflowers, this is a great header to specialize in sunflowers because you're going to harvest 50% faster with that 9-mile-per-hour speed. I know 3 miles an hour doesn't seem like a lot, but from experience, it really does make a huge difference over time. So definitely recommend using a helianthus header if you did not know that they would do that. They're very helpful for that. Now, if you are going to harvest a mix of corn and sunflower, or you're just going to harvest corn, well, you're going to need to use the corn headers here to be able to do that. So that's everything you know as far as harvesting goes. So let's go ahead and hop in our harvester here. I've got our Kloss Lexion good to go here. So if I hop in this guy, we need to make sure everything's unfolded. So the header we need to unfold, so hit X to unfold that. Let that unfold there, and the harvester itself is already unfolded. So if we go up here to just to the corn, we'd be able to harvest it. Let me actually go over to the edge here. Makes a little bit more sense. Now, as far as harvesting goes, I hit V to lower the header down, and then I can hit B, that's B as in boy, V as in Victor to lower the header, B as in boy to turn it on. Or I can just hit B and it'll do both those steps for me. Now again, we can start harvesting once it's on, and you'll see a nice animation. And down there in the bottom right hand corner, you can see we are harvesting corn that's going into our grain tank. Now, what do we do with the corn? After we've harvested enough, we can hit O as in ocean to put this pipe out here. Then we can pull under the pipe with any trailer. So the trailers we have available, any trailer that'll hold corn, if we look at these guys, anything that'll hold corn or sunflower if you're doing sunflower, pull it under there so you can put it into the trailer, and then you can use it past that. So now that we've harvested corn, and well, we know how to do sunflower, because sunflower is going to work the exact same way, except you're going to get sunflower. What do you do with your corn or sunflower? Well, first thing you can do is you can bring it to a sell point. So if we look in our menu here, go down here, let's say we wanted to go to sunflower and sell some sunflower. We just pick whatever place we wanted to sell it at. Now, a couple things to note with that. Let's say you didn't like these prices, you like they seem a little low, or you want to wait to see if you can get a better price. Well, you can put your corn or sunflower into a silo that holds it. And then what you can do is, if it's in a silo, you'll be able to see how much you have in here in liters. So yeah, you can put it in a silo. Now, another thing down here at the bottom, show price fluctuations. If I click that, it's going to show throughout the year in general where the prices are at. So if we look here, the highest price is probably going to be in March. So you might want to wait until March to sell it. Otherwise, yeah, you can sell it whenever you want past that. But yeah, so this little gray line is where the prices should kind of go up and down to relative to the other prices at the other time. So again, the worst time to sell will be December. But yeah, you'll see the price fluctuations through there. Corn, different price fluctuations. Look like the best time to sell is in January. That bar is a little higher than that bar there. So it looks like January and July are two of the best times. So just so you understand that a little bit, and again, I can go back to show current prices to see those. Now, other things you can do with it, if you wanted to do the production chains, you can use sunflower and take it to the oil mill, and you can make sunflower oil and sell that further on. Corn can also be used as part of the cereal production to make cereal. It's one of the ingredients for that. So a couple things you can do extra with that. Now, the final thing I did mention at the beginning of this video that I would quickly go over what is different if you have already watched the grain video. So we're going to talk about that real quick. So the only differences are, one, in order to plant it, you need a planter, not a seeder. So use a planter and make sure that it has corn, sunflower at the bottom. That's the main difference. You need that. The second thing, the header you use on your harvester, you can use the same harvester, you just need a different header. So if we go under harvesters, in the last video, in the grain video, we used the X9, so we'll use it. Last time we used one of these grain headers here. We need to use a corn header here. You can see corn and sunflowers at the bottom. You also have the option, if we go into here under corn headers, or excuse me, under grain headers here, you can use a helianthus header, which will run 50% faster for only sunflowers. So if you're going to focus on sunflowers, that's a faster option. The other thing to note is corn will require plowing after every harvest if you're running with plowing turned on. Otherwise, the process is the same regarding field prep, fertilizing, liming, and weeds. So hopefully that gives you just a quick overview. If you've already watched the grains video, every single part of the process is going to be the same except for those things I just mentioned. Anyhow, guys, if you enjoyed this video, drop a like down below. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button up on the screen to join the Farmer Cop channel and turn on your notification bell so you don't miss any future videos I may post. This has been Farmer Cop. Thank you guys for coming and watching.